I think I've told you this many, many times, but they came to the Rebbe from BBC, and the Rebbe used to give out dollars every Sunday. So they came to him with, there was a cameraman an interviewer, what is it called? And they said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you know, have you got a message? And the Rebbe said, Moshiach is going to come very soon, is on his way. You know, and how do we bring him? They said to do acts of good and kindness. The Rebbe said, do acts of good and kindness. And they said, I don't know if he asked this to the Rebbe first or later, but he said, are you happy? The Rebbe said, yes, I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. And he said it with a big smile on his face. I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. And it's possible to be happy with what you've got, but not satisfied because there's supposed to be so much more. And that's man. I think that's the essence of man. That you must, in fact, even more, if you're not happy with what you've got, then you're never going to be satisfied with what you get. You're never going to be satisfied with what you get in any way. And you're never going to be happy at all. So you have to be happy and appreciate everything that you have. Even if, God forbid, a person is bedridden, all that he has is just the power of free choice to be happy or not to be happy, he should be happy. But satisfied, even if you have all the, the King David, King Solomon, the king of everything, but nevertheless, he's not satisfied. The Rebbe drove us crazy. The Rebbe said that you can never be satisfied if there's even one person in the world that doesn't know about what God is, one Jew that doesn't do all the 613 commandments, one non-Jew that doesn't do the 7 Noahide commandments, you can't be satisfied. You have to be crushed. That was the language of the Rebbe. Katit lamor, you have to be crushed. Okay. So it says every Jew. So how do we start this off? We started off with it brought from the Talmud, from Brachot. And it said that there's one opinion that there's not 5 books of Moses, there's 7 books of Moses. And this week's Torah portion contains 3 books, basically the end of one book. This week's Torah portion contains 3 books, or more exactly, the book of Numbers can be divided into 3. And that division occurs in this week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, right where we're reading now, Ba'alotcha, there's right in the middle, there's 2 sentences that says, when Moses traveled, the ark rose up, and Moses said, travel in front of us, God, and get rid of your enemies, etc. 2 sentences. Those 2 sentences are a book in itself. So from the beginning of the book of Numbers till that sentence is one book. From that end of that sentence to the end of the book of Numbers is another book. And that sentence itself is another book. So we got 3 books in the book of Numbers itself. That's what we said. So the Rebbe said, how can it possibly be? And especially if you divide it up that way, it ends up that the end of the book of Numbers is only bad things, which usually you don't make a whole book for bad things. Okay, so Rebbe said, okay, in order to understand that, let's understand first, what is this idea of the menorah? Why was it so important in Judaism, the menorah, lighting the candles? So it says, one aspect of the menorah is, I'm going to, here we go. I'm muting somebody over here. Nothing personal, okay? Muting. There we go. Okay, so one thing about the menorah is, of course, it gave light, and it was in the Holy Temple, like we learned, it was gold and it was 7. But another thing is that the flame, when the Kohen lights the flame, he goes in every day and he lit the flames of the menorah. So he had to make sure that the flame went up on its own. And the way I understand it is that he shouldn't take his hand away too soon. Right? He has the match, he puts it to the match. He shouldn't just, put it to the match and then pull away the match to see if the flame goes up on its own. No, he has to leave it there until he's certain that the flame goes up on its own. Shelaheves ola me'aleha, that the flame goes up on its own. Okay, now remember, we're talking about the Holy Temple over here, and the Holy Temple was not made by man. The Holy Temple was made by God. I mean, in actual, there were the ones who actually made it were people, but it was the directions every detail of it was given by God. The third temple, it says, will be made totally by God, by God's hands and everything. Mikdash Hashem Kono Nidacha. But it was made exactly according to God's instructions. Exactly. So everything in it was very important because we're important and God is creating us. So God is really reality. So this must be very important. This idea of the flame has to go up on its own. Shalahevet, it has to be a flame. Now the Rebbe is going to explain all three. A flame, because livnei, before shaner nidlak yesh no ner. Before you light the lamp, there is a lamp, the vessel. There's also oil in the lamp. There's also wick in the lamp. But it doesn't shine. Avodah Shel Yehudi, the work of a Jew is shu madliket ner, that he has to light the candle, he has to light the lamp. That you have to do yourself. But often shenasa shalevas, in a way that there becomes a flame, namely a illuminating candle, a lamp. A lamp shines. Shezoar, that it shines out of meir and it illuminates at Saviva, the surrounding. The low rock ner katan, not just a small candle, ella shalaheves, it has to be a flame that goes up. Shalaheves. And it has to olah, it has to go up. Okay, the Rebbe wants to explain what this is in our service of God. Shalahevet, olah, Mela. Shalavet means that it has to be a flame. You can see a flame. It has to go up. What does it mean, go up? Avodato, our job is leheir, to shine. Ki shalahevet bener mitzvah b'torah. It's not good enough we just do the Torah and the commandments for ourselves. We have to shine out. It has to be a way also. She'enu nishar ba'amod b'makom. It doesn't stay in its place. Ela but harato limetoch tenua matmeret. For some reason, either my eyes are not good or this printing is not good. Is it counting shel halicha v'aliyah? The candle, the flame, has to go up. It has to constantly be moving. Malim b'kodesh, like there's the saying, you always increase in holiness. Nosaf al kach, in addition, sheyesh etzlo a mila shel halicha b'chlal. In addition to the fact that a person moves at all, namely mila me'amida, you're not just standing. You're doing, for instance, every day you say the same prayers every day, but you're moving every day. You're adding on a little bit, right? Afilu b'amida b'tokev, even if you're very firm, like in the language of the Haftorah, mehalchim beina omdim. Like it says that you are, it was the Haftorah of Ezekiel, right? 36, what is this? Zechariah. This is the vision of Zechariah. We're talking about the vision of Zechariah, right? Of the Zechariah. He says, he also saw these angels. He says, you are walking among the standing ones. The standing ones are the angels. Remember, we learned a mimer about that in Likutei Torah. Halicha, this means going. Sometimes a person can walk to the length and to the width. The hainu, namely, halicha ba'oto shetach besug avodah. One type of walking is you walk, you survey your land or whatever, but it's a way of going length and width. A parish ola, when it says that the flame must go up, means it doesn't stay on the same plane, but it ola me'ala shetach, it goes to a different dimension. V'darga shabo ya ad az. Instead of being on the level of a plane, it becomes like another dimension. A plane is two dimensions, right? It's length and width, but it has no depth to it. It has no depth to it, no thickness. A cube, on the other hand, has length and width, but it's thick as well. It's a whole different dimension. That's three dimensions. That's what olam means. Olam means that you go up. You raise up to a different type of a person. You become a different dimension. Like it is a simple flame. A different type of serving of God. And it was not just that every day you pray and every day you do what you're supposed to do. And that's very good. That's good. That's okay. Right? That's all right. But it's not really serving God. That's being static. That's being in one place. the Rebbe spoke a lot of times to, there were people, rich people, that came to the Rebbe for advice. And the Rebbe said the nature of a rich person is that he's never satisfied. It says in the Talmud, it says, Mishiyeshlo mana rotza masayim. Mishlo masayim rotza arba meot. A person that has 100, he wants 200. A person that has 200, he wants 400. My teacher, Rabbi Futafas, he said, who is poorer? Who is lacking more? A person that has $5 or a person that has $1 million? So I said, well, a person that has $5, he looks at somebody that has $1 million, he's lacking more. He says, no, the person that has $1 million, he looks at what he's got and he wants twice as much. And the person that has $5, he looks at what he's got and he wants twice as much. So it ends up the person with $5, he is only lacking another 5. The person that has $1 million, he's lacking $1 million. That's the nature, that's healthy nature of a person. Of course, if the things that you want are bad things, then that's not good. But to be rich is very good. What's wrong with being rich? It's wonderful to be good. Wonderful to be rich. You can give charity, you can do things, you can help people. There's no end to it, right? Of course, if you use those riches for yourself, then you go crazy. You go mad. You become convoluted. What's it called? Implosion. Therefore, it says that you have to be rich, but it has to be a different type of a richness where you go out of yourself. A different awareness of what God is. That's what it means, allow. And then it says that the flame has to go up on its own. This becomes your nature, and your existence. You shine on yourself. You're not like a religious person, right? You're a religious person. You're a person. You're a person. A religious person, that's for a person who's mainly he's a person. And it adds on that he's religious. He has a big yarmulke, he has this. But if you realize that you're just serving God and that God is creating you and he's creating you to serve him, then that's your whole essence as a person. Your whole essence as a person is, like there's some people that are a doctor, some people are a lawyer. This person, I'm a Jew. A Jew is a person that serves God. That's what a Jew is. It was sort of like that, really. We talked about that before, but it was like that in a lot of these countries before the white man came in, in Iraq and Iran, and especially in Morocco. Morocco is really big, and Yemen. But Morocco is really an outstanding one. And also to a certain degree, Tunisia in this place. There was no such thing as a religious Jew, or there was a Jew. A Jew did the Torah. Every Jew kept Shabbat. Every Jew put on tefillin. Every Jew dressed modestly, right? Every Jew. Of course, there were always people who, they couldn't control themselves. So there were always people that they were looked at, and they looked at themselves that they've got a problem. There's a problem. Right? There was always there were people that were crooked and liars and cheaters. There's always going to be people like that, and that they beat their wife. It's 1 in a million, but it happened. There were always people like that. But that was an unusual, an anomaly. Anomaly, switch the word. Anomaly. Every Jew there's no such thing as a religious Jew and a not religious Jew. But once in a while there would be a Jew that he would, become a Muslim for whatever reason it was, for financial reasons. I don't even know if there was such a thing. But a Jew did the Torah and the commandments. Then there came the French, then there came the Zionists, then there came this, and all of a sudden it became, no, you're a man first. You're a human being. That's your main thing. You want to be religious, be religious. That's your business. But you're a man, you're a human being. That's the main thing. It says the Rebbe, no, you have to be a shalavis. You have to be a flame that goes up on its own. In other words, that becomes your nature, that's your identity. That's who you really are. Well, therefore, the problem with all these in Iran and the Jews in Morocco and that, they lacked craziness. They were normal. Judaism by them was normal. As soon as the Zionists came in and they, some great person spoke to them in fluent, beautiful Hebrew on, in Shabbat, and he lit up a cigarette. So they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to combat, right? How to combat. They wanted to give honor to an honorable person. They didn't know what to do. They had no craziness to stand against peer pressure. They were helpless. And Chabad came to Morocco, and it brought in the insanity of Judaism. Just like people are crazy for themselves, and they're willing to do the most insane things for money and for this, so Chabad made it that people are willing to do insane things for the truth, crazy things for, and that's what saved everyone. That's what saved. That's the idea of Moshiach. Well, therefore, there has to be all these conditions in order that the light should be a vessel, the lamp should be a vessel that it is proper in order that the light that it should be a light which you can, like a lamp which you can light on its own. Right, that the lamp becomes lit on its own. That's what it was in the Holy Temple. That the menorah, the flames were lit on their own. They went up on their own. The Kohen had to start them, but afterwards they were self-sufficient. All your days of this. How can you make yourself into a proper lamp that will remain lit? You have to have, first of all, a proper wick. You have to have proper oil. You have to have proper, right? That you have to have proper oil. That the oil has to be flammable, and it has to be right combustible, but in a normal way, that it'll receive the flame. Kamavur, like it's explained, there's a Mishnah in Hamamad Likim. Some people say this in Shabbos, and in the synagogue on Erev Shabbos, they say it. Alder says similarly in the serving God. You have to make yourself, you're the lamp. You have to make yourself into a good lamp. Hachshorish v'bitla adam, a person has to surrender himself. He has to harmonize himself with the instructions of the Creator that he will be able to receive and to contain this flame of the ner mitzvah, that the commandments are a lamp and the Torah is the flame, is the light, in a way that it will be self-sufficient from himself. You won't always have to be going to the Rebbe and going to your rabbi, and you will be right and looking. You have training wheels and running back to mommy. You will be self-sufficient. You will be excited and enthusiastic on your own in a way of elevation. And this service, in a way of shall have us go up. I just want to say that I once learned in a kollel. Kollel is a place where after you get married, there's people who give money, and for young men to sit and learn Torah, because as soon as you get married, so you have to find a job. What are you going to do? And so there's people that they have money, and they want, let's say they can't learn Torah, they don't know, or they can, but they want other people to learn Torah, and they pay money. They say, listen, I'll pay you money if you sit and learn Torah. But I'm not paying you to learn Torah. I'm paying you what you would earn in a regular job, right? If you weren't learning Torah, then you would go and work. So I'm paying you the money for not going and working, but sitting and learning Torah, because learning Torah is so very important. Okay, that's called the kollel. So I used to learn on a lot of these kollels. So a few of the kollels that I learned, and there were these people that were very against Chabad. There was a big movement. Anyway, not to go into things that are painful to talk about, but there was one, a special rabbi that he talked against Chabad, and he made a big impression. Anyway, so that doesn't exist anymore. Nobody even really knows what the guy said. Anyway, so they were saying about Chabad, and I said, let's learn a mimer. So I took out a mimer, we learned it, and they didn't really understand anything that was going on. Just something very simple. We're learning a bit complicated things. Anyway, so one of them said, one thing I can say about Chabad, he said, if you take one of us and you put us in a place where there's, no community, as we'll start being lenient on ourselves. And we'll, eventually you skip one prayer, skip another prayer, you bring a television into your house, you bring this, and you just become weaker and weaker. It says by Chabad, you take a person in Chabad, even if the person knows almost nothing, you put him in some faraway place, all of a sudden he'll start making minions, and he'll gather people together, and he'll bring somebody to teach them Torah, and he'll encourage the children. So that's really amazing. That's really amazing. And all of them said, yeah, you're right. You got a good point. I said, that's because of this chassidut that we're learning here. It makes you crazy. It makes you crazy for God. And they didn't accept that. They didn't understand what I'm talking about. But they did agree that Chabad, that's the thing of a flame goes up on its own. That's what it means. It has to be in your nature, whether regarding yourself or regarding working with others. It's your nature that you want to illuminate the world. Okay, what do you have to do? That's whether with yourself or with others. In regarding to yourself, let's try to do it. In regarding to yourself, let's see how much we can get done. Even though that the service of a Jew with ner mitzvah Torah, or with it, the commandments are a lamp and the Torah is light. It begins and it comes from God and from your parents, teacher, and your teachers. These are the two partners that you have. God, it says a person when he's born, there's three partners: his mother, his father, and God. So first of all, they're not just partners in giving birth to you and creating you, but also in educating you. So therefore, God gives you a soul, and your parents gives you the example. Also the same thing, but nevertheless, you cannot rely on them. You have to rely on yourself. You have to rely on yourself. You yourself have to be enthusiastic. Kafishu, like is in Torah, or just like as the Torah is a light, after the beginning learning Torah, a Jew receives himself from the Torah, and the Torah, malamdo, and he teaches others, and his teachers, and is the rabbi that learned with him Torah, but nevertheless afterwards he has to understand the Torah on his own, until that becomes carved out in his mind, until it's a way that the Torah unites with him. Now here we have an example of how God puts us into difficulties. It says that the soul of a Jew, before it comes into the world, God teaches him the whole Torah. So he knows the whole Torah, and it's ingrained in his mind and his heart and his soul. And right before he's born, it says that God hits a person and he forgets the whole Torah. Why do a thing like that? Why? It says so he'll learn it afterwards. So why don't hit him and he won't have to learn it, he'll know it all. It says no, the learning itself is a tremendously important commandment. That then it becomes yours. If you didn't, then the Torah would never be yours. It would always be, you would always be like on training wheels. It would always be that you're being injected, right? You're attached to the source. You're a robot. You've been programmed. By learning on your own, you make your own decisions. Until when he doesn't need his teacher anymore. Until the Torah becomes his. It's his Torah delay. It's his Torah. Until it's actually the opposite. The person becomes brand new, and he can even discover new ideas in the Torah. That's what it means, that he's a flame that goes up on his own. And there's even more, that the whole novelty of the giving of the Torah, even though that the Torah was given by means of God to the Jewish people, and it was given with God's power, but nevertheless, with the power of God, the Jewish people have the ability to learn the Torah. But dugmas, like you said, balot chatanerot, that who davka b'koach hamadlik, the only way that the lights go is by the Kohen has to light them. So we also have to be illuminated. Let's see what's going on. Who is this? Oh, very good. So we have to, first of all, just like the lights in the Holy Temple, they had to be lit, first of all, by the Kohen. They had to be lit. Or a child, he has to be taught by his teachers. Or in Mount Sinai, God gave us the Torah. But the Torah was given in such a way that it's no longer in heaven. The Nimsa Davka, and it was given over to the Jewish people, souls in bodies, Davka, the base din, which are below the judicial court. They have the ability to judge laws. Until, remember, we talked about this before, even God himself and his upper court, the heavenly court, when they come down to hear what the rabbis say in this world. It says that even more, God smiles and he says, Nitzchuni b'nai nitzchuni. It says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, where is it? 46. It says there's in Baba Metzia. It says in Baba Metzia, there's an argument that the rabbis argue with what was it, Rabbi Eliezer, and he says that Nechonia ben Akana, I think it was, and he said that there was an argument. And God came down and he said, the law is like this. And the rabbis say, we don't agree. And God smiled and he said, you defeated me. Why? Because God put Torah into it's almost the same thing as prayer, right? We pray, we affect God. God listens to our prayers. Why? Because that's the way God set it up. But we do it. We're tremendously, tremendously important in God's eyes. Nevertheless, a person has to learn over and over again, even 100 times, not because that he doesn't understand the learning, or not because it's not integrated into himself. Exactly the opposite. He's inspired on his own to learn the Torah, but because that he can learn and to add and change his how do you say, nature. His nature, he's become natural. He likes to learn Torah. You have to learn more and more time that you don't enjoy. And so it is also doing the commandments. That the completion, the total, how do you say, perfection in serving God and doing the commandments is when a person accustoms himself to do the commandments automatically. What does it mean automatically? That he automatically puts on tefillin, right? Like you have the basketball players and tennis players and everything like that. Right? Automatically, they know how to shoot the ball, and automatically, and that's what makes them great. That they're so united with the purpose of the game and the strategy of the game and the flow of the game that then they're really alive. Kimata lamodim, what's that? Alder kimata lamodim benafshe korea. When a person reaches modem in prayer, so he has to bow down. He has to bow down. What does that mean? That it says automatically that a person serves God in an automatic way. In other words, he does what's right automatically. Same thing as when you get in a car, right? Automatically, you drive on the proper side of the street. I remember I was in England for a while, only a couple of days, and somebody wanted me to give his car to drive, and I was just very afraid that I would just go according to my nature and I would drive on the right side of the street, which I would maybe be excused, but maybe I wouldn't come out unscathed from the thing, because your nature takes over. Your nature is you drive on the right side of the street naturally. I have a person who say, "Hey, I've been programmed. I'm a robot." That's a good thing, but you want to drive on the left side of the street. It could be the last time you'll ever drive. But nosaf al kach, in addition to that, the Torah commandments has to be in a way of that it's automatic to you, that you really feel I am serving God. Kach also, it has to be also in the mundane things in the world. In the mundane things in the world, this is all of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven, and all of your ways you should know God. That everything that the Metziut, that your whole being, every single moment of life is not just in the time when you're learning Torah, or you're praying, or you're doing holy things, but it should be so permeated with this idea that I put God in front of me always. Remember, we just learned in Likkutei Torah, when you look at the world as though it's being created all the time, and in fact, it is being created all the time, and I'm also being created all the time, and there's a creator. So suddenly you realize, how could I possibly devote myself to the creation and ignore the creator? And even more, God's creating me. I can renew myself brand new. God is renewing me constantly, and God will help me to go out of myself. Then, not only just in Torah and the commandments and being a religious Jew, but in everything that I do. The whole world is being created by God, right? The trees, that's not religion. The ground, my shoes, that's religion. That's godliness. That's the way I should be. All of your ways, you should know God. You should know means being connected. God, even when a person eats, when he goes to sleep, when he's working in his business, when he's doing things in the world, nevertheless, he is still a shelahevis. He is a flame that goes up on its own. That on its own, he does everything for the sake of heaven in order to know and to be connected to God. And also, it is also regarding others that you should have an effect, a influence, a true influence on on others. How can you do this? Only when you yourself are a shelahevet olam eleh, when you yourself are genuinely inspired in what you do. And you're inspired. Listen, people could be genuinely inspired of what they do, but what they're inspired is not genuine, is not right. Right? They've got these people, fanatics, they don't want to hear anybody else. They're just fanatics, and they're truly inspired, and they can inspire other people also. Right? I yesterday read, what was this? I read a thing that there was a teacher that he made an experiment which was called, what was it called? Level 3 or category 3. I forget what it was. He did it in his school. He wanted to show the children how it was possible that the Nazis controlled everybody's mind. And everybody got so enthusiastic to be like murderers and things like that. So he made an experiment, and he really thought the experiment wouldn't work. What was it called? Third wave, I think. Third wave. I think that's what he called it. And he said, we're called the third wave, and everybody has to do certain things and everything. So he figured eventually the kids would say, okay, we get it, teacher. That's pretty weird. But it was the opposite. The kids loved it. All of a sudden, they became like sort of hypnotized by this. And they informed one the other, and he gave them prizes. And finally, he had to make a special meeting, like after the fourth day, right? And they were terrorizing, these kids were terrorizing normal kids. They were terrorizing the school. So in other words, it became ingrained inside of them that naturally on their own, they became monsters. Right? It's possible to do that. And so it's not surprising that people look at religious people and say, hey, these guys are monsters too. What's the difference between them and, otherwise, I just want to be free. I'll just do whatever I want. Right? There's definitely a point to that. But if you look at it closely, you'll see that it's not so, because people, in fact, don't know what they want. They're not doing what they want. They're slaves to their own, urges. So here, this takes faith. We're believing that the Torah is true and God really exists and God really gave us the Torah and God is creating the world. But when you feel the truth of this, that it's a different type of a truth, you can defy the whole world. It's not all these other things, the Nazis and the communists. It depends 90%, 99% maybe on peer pressure. What everybody's doing. If everybody stops doing it, then you'll stop doing it. But Judaism is not that. Judaism is that it could be there's other groups also, could be the other. But Judaism is even if everyone in the world says that you're wrong, you know for sure 100% that you're right. You're willing to give your life, and Jews did it. That's what's called a flame that goes up on its own. Shagam kasher, even when mashpia, when his his teachers, his rabbi goes away, nevertheless he remains a illuminated light. Right, like those people said, if you take a Chabad guy and you put him in a place, even if he doesn't know how to learn, all of a sudden he influences the whole entire place. And listen, there are Chabad people that are influenced by the world. Don't worry, there are a lot of them. Too many. Even if there's one, it's too many. There certainly are, but there's the possibility, and that's the goal, at least, of Chassidut, is that every Jew can be, and every Jew will be, motivated by the creator of the universe and by the Torah. Kavan says this because this becomes his nature. It becomes his whole being. So therefore, in a way that a person stands on his own 2 feet, and the flame goes up on its own, and he doesn't need any teachers or whatever. He becomes a flame that goes up on its own. How is this going to be? We're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Okay, let's do the Yom Yom for yesterday and today. I didn't record yesterday's. Just hope I don't forget to record this like I did yesterday.